It's my delight to be able to open this meeting and chair for you just the first portion of this morning. As this is a new committee, we will do an election of the chair and vice chair. So it's a very straightforward, simple process. I'll be opening the floor to nominations. I'll do the chair position first, and then the vice chair, and we'll proceed with the meeting thereafter. So at this point, I'll open the floor to nominations for the position of chair of the Committee of Adjustment.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Ron Chatta.
Ron Chatta, very good. And do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Very good. Are there any further nominations for the position of chair? Seeing none, I would request a motion then to adopt Ron Chatta as the chair of the Committee of Adjustment. So moved. And seconded by David Culp. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next, then, we have the position of vice chair. Is there a nomination on the floor for the position of vice chair?
Nominate Desiree.
Desiree, very good. Desiree Dothrower. And do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Very good. And any further nominations for the position of vice chair? Seeing none, I'll take a motion then to adopt Desiree Dothler as vice chair of the Committee of Adjustment. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. I'll now pass over the chair to Ron Chatta.
You need to switch here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us. First of all, I would like to thank my committee members for having faith in me, for being the chair for this wonderful committee. On behalf of this committee member, I would like to thank especially the clerk's office and the entire staff for assisting us. And on behalf of this committee, I would like to thank the council and the staff for assisting and conducting all the interviews throughout the time. At this time, I would like to thank the previous committee members who worked over 4 years almost on the previous term, and the chair. I'd like to thank for their contribution, and we are here to go ahead with the normal business. So, Ms. Myers, you can call the applicant. Oh, sure. Sorry. So we have some procedures. I would be going ahead with that, and then welcome everyone to the Committee of Adjustment meeting of May 28, 2019. My name is Ron Chatta, Committee Chair for today's meeting. This is a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment. The Committee of Adjustment is composed with 5 citizen members who are appointed by the Brampton City Council. The committee is authorized by the Ontario Planning Act to consider applications for minor variances from the provision of the City of Brampton zoning bylaw. The committee also consider applications for consent, sometimes referred to land division applications, which include severing a new lot from an existing lot, a lot addition, easement, mortgages, or leases in excess of 21 years. I would like to introduce the committee members. To my immediate left, member Ms. Desiree Dothler. To my far left, member Mr. Rod Power. And to my immediate right, member Mr. Dave Culp. And one member, Ms. Marcus, sends her regrets. She is not here with us today, but she will be here with us in the next meeting. Seated at the table in front of the committee, Ms. Ginny Myers, Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment. And seated near the podium, we have the city staff who will assist the committee today. May I ask staff to please introduce yourself?
Daniel Watchhorn, Development Planning.
I'm Elizabeth Corzola, Manager of Zoning and Sign Bylaw Services.
My name is Bernie Steiger, Manager, Development Services.
Neil Chadha, Development Planner.
Himanshu Katyal, Development Planning.
Thank you. Before we consider today's application, the committee has some procedural matter to take care of. The first is the adoption of minutes. The meeting held, the minutes of the previous meeting are presented in today's agenda. Committee members, is there any question, concern about these minutes for May 7, 2019? Seeing none, may I have a motion for the adoptions of the minutes of May 7, 2019 as presented? Motion to approve by Ms. Doffler, seconded by Mr. Cole. All in favor? It's carried. Now we are in a declaration of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Any member has any declaration of pecuniary interest to declare any matter being discussed today? I do have one. Application A19084, previously working relationship as an agent. So now we move on to the withdrawals and deferrals. For this meeting, I guess we have a request for withdrawal and a few deferral applications. Ms. Myers, if we can proceed. Yes, application A19007.
Perhaps before we get into that, we might want to acknowledge in a public forum that we have an application that's being withdrawn. The first item listed on the agenda for today.
Yeah, so do we have here, do the agent need to present for that withdrawal application or no?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it's not necessary. The agent has provided a letter advising us of withdrawal of the application. We
Okay.
are merely acknowledging that in a public forum.
So no need the motion for that.
Correct.
Okay, so so the letter dated May 15th from Colin Chung of Glenn Schnorr and Associate, authorized agent advising withdrawal of minor variance application A19007 in the name of GCJN Investment Limited. So that's fair enough. Now we move on to the deferral request. We do have some written requests. Some of them are requested by the agents, and I believe some is by the staff as well, the staff suggesting. So the one application is in front of me is application B19014. Is anyone present, agent or? Application B19014.
Good morning,
Good morning.
committee. My name is Eric Merso. I'm the agent here on behalf of the property owner at 10764 Bramley Road. We are requesting a deferral, I guess, also in agreement with staff who have requested the same deferral for this application in order to proceed on the next committee date of June 18th, 2019. We have no issues with this, and like I said, we're in agreement with staff opinion.
Okay, so this, to proceed to the June 18, 2019 hearing, that's what you're requesting, right?
Correct.
Okay, committee members, any question or concern? Any question to the applicant in regards to this application? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? B19014, the property address is 10764 Bramley Road. Seeing none. Staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Staff is in agreement with the applicant to defer it to June 18th, 2019 meeting.
Okay. So I believe it says the city is in discussions with the property to the north of this property on some mutual access.
That's correct. So the city has received the application from the property to the north. Since this will be an easement application, in the next meeting, both the mutual easement applications can be considered at the same time.
So you think, since this is May 28th and considering June 18th is the very next meeting, that's a good enough time?
Yes, that's correct.
Agent is in agreement with that?
Yes.
Ms. Myers, are we okay to, for the June 18, in case of any circulation or anything else?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've been communicating with the agent on this one, and it is beneficial that both applications will be heard on the same hearing date, and we can accommodate the request.
Okay, if no further question, looking for a motion to move June 18, 2019. Motion by Mr. Power, seconded by Ms. Doppler. All in favor? This is deferred to June 18.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is one we dealt. Second, is anybody else in the audience wishes to defer the application or looking for a future date? We, then it's suggested by staff.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's okay to proceed in the order that you're currently doing. If
Okay.
you have asked if there are any other further requests for deferrals, and we can accommodate those requests, and then we can get into any staff recommended deferrals.
Sure. Sir, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning. Your name and address for the record, please.
It's Raymond from Glenshire and Associates for 9,845 Chinguzi, but I just realized it is a staff recommended deferral, so I can come back at it.
That's okay. You can proceed now.
Okay. As I mentioned, Mr. Chair, I'm Raymond from Glenshire and Associates representing Crest Point Real Estate, Inc., file number A19095. It's on the 8th page. Through correspondence with city planning, it was identified that they had additional clarifications regarding the function of the site and recommended a deferral to the June 18th Committee of Adjustment hearing, just to provide a greater opportunity for clarification regarding like parking, access, loading, and how the garbage would function. We're in agreement with this and have no issues.
Okay. Committee members, any questions or concerns so far to the applicant? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? A19095, the property address 9845 Chinguzi Road. Seeing none. Staff, could you please begin your comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, staff is recommending deferral to next meeting since we will be able to get the information in the time frame.
Okay, so I believe we must have done the due diligence that the timing is good enough because it's just immediately the next meeting.
Yes, that's correct.
And we're okay, Ms. Myers?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are able to accommodate it. It's my understanding that there's no change anticipated to this application.
Okay, okay. So, looking for a motion to move this application A19095 to June the 18, 2019 meeting. Motion by Mr. Kolb, seconded by Ms. Doppler. All in favor? This is moved.
Thank you.
Seeing no other written request, but still last one time I would ask anyone else wishes to ask for another date can come forward. Sir? Your name and address and
Good morning. My name is Amin Shaya. My address is 133 Ecclestone Drive. Application number A19079.
At this time, we're asking for withdrawals, for the deferral request. Are you looking for something like that? Or
Yes, the reason for that is I had the sign erected in my property, but for some reason it flew off due to wind conditions. So I thought I should report this. So if the committee sees that I need to defer this hearing, then I have no issues with that. If that's okay, then I will proceed.
I was going to ask about that anyway because I did not notice the sign displayed on your property. There is one a copy of the permit displayed on your main door though, but there was no sign displayed on your property.
Yes,
So-
it went missing.
Okay, so I see the two empty wire posts.
Correct.
But I believe maybe it's removed or because of
Due
the
to the
wind or
wind
something.
conditions, it went missing, and then we looked for it in the whole neighborhood, but we couldn't find it.
Okay, so Ms. Myers, should we give another date so the entire neighborhood can be informed, or?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in order to notify the affected property owners, we can accommodate this application on the next hearing, given that we're not making any changes to the application.
So do we need to send another notice,
We will
letter?
be required, yes, we will be sending public notification of the hearing date to the affected property owners,
Okay,
thereby giving them the opportunity to attend or provide comments in writing if they should so desire.
and I believe in that case, the gentleman would require another sign?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. We would issue a new sign as we approach the hearing date in order to comply with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Okay, so any question, concern? Yeah, please go ahead, Mr. Duffy.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to confirm, the notices were sent for the initial application to all residents, so they would have received notice?
Through you, Mr. Chair, public notices have been sent to all the affected property owners in the surrounding area. The applicant did speak to me earlier this morning to advise that the sign went missing, confirming that he had posted it from Thursday the 16th, and it went missing 8 days after that.
Okay. Okay, so I believe if, in my personal opinion, we should move it to the next hearing, which is the June the 18th. That will give enough time for sign display if the property owner can collect the new sign from city as soon as it's available.
Sure.
Okay, so looking for forward a motion to defer this application A19079 to June 18, 2019 hearing. Motion by Mr. Power, seconded by Mr. Kopp. All in favor? Okay, sir, your new hearing date is June 18, 2019.
Thank you.
Welcome. I believe no other requests, so we'll move on to
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's a staff recommendation deferral on application B19012 for your consideration.
B19012. Okay, we can discuss about this one as well. So application B19012, is anyone present here? Please come forward.
Good evening, members. Good morning, members of committee. My name is Oz Kamal. I'm the agent for our owners on the property at Credit View and Beauvais Drive. This is a consent application. The intent is to sever the southern portion of the site to facilitate a gas bar use, and that's so that the future owners can proceed with their site plan application, which they do have a pre-consultation submitted for. We submitted a pre-consultation on this entire block back on December 11th, 2018, where we discussed various items, including design and access. And we had transportation staff at that pre-consultation meeting in December 2018, and access was generally accepted. When I reminded planning about this, because we did receive the deferral request, I reminded planning that we had already talked about this site. Planning didn't recall that access being accepted. And then I reminded planning that we went back, this was all zoned for a gas bar at this site back by the OMB in July 2017. The gas bar location's not changed. Again, this is just facilitating what we've always envisioned for this area in the interim. That being said, we did receive the deferral request. Planning staff advised that they would not be changing that deferral request to July 30th. I just wanted it on the record that this access has been discussed because apparently access was the issue. So that all being said, we'll accept the deferral request to July 30th, but we do want a decision on July 30th with respect to the consent. Thank you.
I understand. Committee members, any questions at this point to the applicant, the agent? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? B19012, property located Parade West Holding Inc., a part of Lot 14, Concession 4EH S, northwest corner of Bovade Drive West and Credit View Road. Seeing none, staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, upon review of the concept site plan, transportation staff have concerns with the access. The previous pre-consultation for the whole block that was considered noted that only one access along Credit View would be permitted. So the concept plan does show one access. However, the transportation staff had also noted the minimum distance they would require from the intersection from Bovade, which this does not meet. So staff would like to review the pre-consultation application that has been submitted and resolve these concerns through that pre-consultation. And when we come back on the July 30th meeting, hopefully those concerns will be resolved.
Please come forward.
Sorry, just one clarification. When we checked our notes on that pre-consultation back in 2018, our notes noted that we were allowed potentially 2 accesses on Credit View because of the severance that would be happening in the future. If there's formal comments that say 1 access, we have not received those. So if there are comments that say 1 access only, I would like to get a copy of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please remain here till your application is being discussed. So staff, would you provide a copy as the agent requested? The
Through you,
missing
Mr.
portion?
Chair, yes, we will provide the comments.
And just one clarification I would like to know. It says the staff would seek a mutual access easement with the adjacent property to the north. Which property to the north we are discussing on? Because I see there is one, to me, if this is a one property and the north property, there's already an access, the road. So you mean, when in the staff report it's indicated property to the north. So which property we are talking about?
So the subject property is at the corner of Bovade and Credit View. That's the one proposed to be severed. And the adjacent property to the north is the left remaining portion from this lot.
Okay, within the same severed and the left, not
That's right.
the one right after the
Just
road.
north of this.
Okay, no problem. So I hope by the time July 30th, all issues will be resolved and we should be able to make the decision. So looking forward for July 30th.
Us too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, any question, concern? If nothing, then I would like to look forward to a motion so we can hear this application back on July 30th, 2019. Motion to defer for July 30th by Ms. Doppler, seconded by Mr. Power. All in favor? So this application has been deferred to July 30th, 2019. For those unfamiliar with the Committee of Adjustment procedure and process, I would like to give a brief explanation and scope. Following some procedural matter that we have already undergone, the Secretary Treasurer will call the applications by announcing the application number, the name of the applicant, and the address of the subject property to the application. The applicant or authorized agent representing the applicant will then come to the podium, state their name and addresses for the record, and then present the application. I request that you reserve any question or comments pertaining to the staff report until after planning staff has had an opportunity to present. If there is anyone in attendance who wishes to speak to a particular application, you will be given the opportunity to do so when the application is presented. Any decision made here today may be appealed to the local planning appeal tribunal, LPAT, previously through the Ontario Municipal Board. Appeals received in the city clerk's office associated with the minor variance and consent applications will be processed and forwarded to LPAT. This process may be commenced with the Secretary Treasurer by filing a completed appeal form and filing fee within the prescribed 20 days appeal period. Information pertaining to the appeal process may be obtained by contacting the Secretary Treasurer within the City Clerk's office. Now we move on to the consent applications.
Calling application B19013 for Side Estates Inc. Properties located at Atmar Drive and Palechi Drive.
Morning.
Again. My name is Eric Murthu. We are the applicant here on behalf of the owners at Atmar Drive and Palechi Drive, known as Forestside Estates, Inc. We're here to request from committee a consent to sell a portion of property, approximately 0.09 hectares, for a lot addition to the adjoining property. This is part of an overall subdivision, and I guess they're separate blocks on a registered plan, and we're just trying to clean up the one of the sites, that's all.
Okay. Committee members, any question or concerns so far? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? Seeing none. Staff, could you please bring your comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, staff have reviewed the proposal and have no concerns. Staff would recommend approval, subject to the following conditions being imposed. Number 1, a Secretary Treasurer certificate fee shall be paid in the amount current at the time of the issuance of the certificate of the Secretary Treasurer. Number 2, approval of the draft reference plan, as applicable, shall be obtained at the Committee of Adjustment Office, and the required number of prints of the resultant deposited reference plans shall be received. Number 3, subsection 50, sub 3 and or 5 of the Planning Act, as amended, shall apply to any subsequent conveyance or transaction involving the parcel of land that is the subject of this consent. Number 4, a solicitor's undertaking shall be received indicating that the severed land and the abutting land, being the legal description of the lot, shall be merged for Planning Act purposes at the time of the registration of the transfer to which the Secretary Treasurer's certificate is affixed. And last, an undertaking shall be received from a solicitor confirming that the legal description of the resultant lot and the legal description in any mortgage or mortgages encumbering the resultant lot will be identical within 4 weeks of the date of the Secretary Treasurer's certificate under the Planning Act, or alternatively, that no part of the resultant lot is encumbered by any mortgage. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So do you understand an agreement with these conditions?
Yes, we're fine with those.
Okay. If no further discussion, would like to see a motion to proceed. Motion to approve with conditions by Mr. Doppler, seconded by Mr. Cole. All in favor? This is approved, sir.
Thank you.
So please be with us because it's the new committee is signing the first decision officially, so that's why
Historic moment.
we just wanna make sure that everything is properly.
Calling application A19-074, 247-0259 Ontario, Inc. The property is located at 120 Advance Boulevard.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
My
morning.
name is Jagruti, and I have Mr. Mangat with me. He is the owner of 120 Advance Boulevard. Actually,
Sorry, ma'am, could you please state your full
My
name,
full-
first and last, and your address, please?
yeah, my full name is Jagruti Prajapati.
Can you spell it because staff is going to make the note for the
Uh-huh.
record? So
Okay.
if you can please spell slowly.
Yeah, Jagruti, Jagruti. Last name is Prajapati, Prajapati.
And your address, please?
120 Advance Boulevard.
That's
Advance-
the property address.
Yeah, that's the property address.
For yours, are you the
No,
owner?
he is the owner, Mr. Mangat,
Uh-huh.
and I work with him.
Okay, that's fine
Yeah.
then. Okay, so please go ahead.
So now we have a body shop at this location, and as you see in our property location, we have designated storage area, and we use this storage area to park the vehicle. Right? Now the thing is that we do take insurance claims, and insurance companies, they want us to convert this storage area into legal impound facility so that we can claim the storage, right? So that's why we have applied for the minor variance.
Okay, anything else? We have this application in front of us, so we have the information. Anything else you wishes to add, or we have the enough?
No, that's fine.
Okay, so committee members, any question, concern at this point? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? The address is 120 Advance Boulevard. Seeing none, staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Staff are in support of this minor variance application, subject to the following conditions being imposed. One, that the applicant shall remove the storm sewer pipe installed without approvals at the rear of the property and reinstate the drainage ditch to its original condition in accordance with site plan application SP 00-041.001 within 180 days of the date of the committee's decision to the satisfaction of the City of Brampton Public Works and Engineering Department. Two, that the automobile impound facility shall be screened from public view. Three, that the automobile impound facility shall only be permitted in association with the motor vehicle repair shop. Four, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. And five, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void.
Okay. Do you understand and in agreement to all these
Yes.
conditions?
Yeah, we agree.
Just quickly, 180 days, I believe it's a good enough time for everyone to work?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we actually have spoken at the front counter about this and are in agreement that 180 days should be enough.
Okay. If no other discussion, looking forward to a motion to proceed. Motion to approve with conditions. By Mr. Cole, seconded by Mr. Howard. All in favor? This is approved.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Calling application A19-080, Shahin Shakib and Mona Abdel Momen. The property is located at 220 Van Kirk Drive.
Please come forward, sir.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shahin Shakib. The
Yes.
address is 220 Van Kirk Drive. And
Okay, sir. Welcome. Would you, we have your information in front of us. Would you wishes to add something or would like to proceed? I guess we have enough information.
well, the information, the variance I applied for it is I bought the house the way it was. I didn't change anything.
Okay.
What I did the past 3 years was fix part of the roof because of the storm we had it, and the side, the fence. Side fence I changed. Nothing else. I bought the house like that. Now I have to apply for the variant to make it legal.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That's the right approach. And no problem, committee members. Any question at this point to the owner? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? Seeing none. Staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to give a little bit of background on the subject property. So the property has constructed an open roof porch which encroaches into the rear yard setback beyond what is permitted. Additionally, there is an existing accessory structure shed which does not meet the rear yard setback. So this shed, when it was constructed, it wasn't constructed exactly parallel, it is off. So a portion of the shed slightly overhangs the neighboring fence. So that's why this is in front of you today.
Okay.
Great. So it is this position of staff that application A19080 is supportable based on the 4 tests of the plan of the minor variances. The following 6 conditions shall be imposed. That within 120 days of the date of the committee's decision, the owner shall demonstrate to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services that no portion of the accessory structure encroaches onto the neighboring property. In this regard, modifications to the accessory structure may be required. Where such modifications are necessary, the applicant shall demonstrate that such work has been completed. Further, the application shall demonstrate that drainage from the accessory structure will be directed onto the subject property. Condition 2, that roof drainage from the accessory structure shed shall flow onto the applicant's property. 3, that the existing open roofed porch be of an open style construction with a flat sloping roof and will maintain its modest construction. 4, that the owner shall obtain a building permit for the open roof porch within 60 days of the date of the decision of approval. 5, that the extent of the variance be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice, and that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. These are the conditions.
Okay. Sir, do you understand and accept these conditions?
Yeah.
You understand there is some modification required to the structure, which is going to the neighbor's property?
Well, I didn't know, to be honest.
No, that's okay, but that's fine. That's why the city is working with you.
I'm going to fix it for sure.
Yeah, so it says 120 days. You think that's good enough time, or you need a little bit more, or it's okay?
It's fine.
It's a summer, so I guess
Yeah.
lots of people will go to fix it.
So it's fine. No
Yeah,
problem.
that's good, that's good. Any question or concern at this point, committee members? Sir, do you understand and accept these recommendations?
Yeah.
Okay. Committee members, if no further discussion, looking for a motion to proceed. Motion by Mr. Cope to support the application, I believe, with conditions. Okay. Seconded by Ms. Toffler. All in favor? It's carried. It's approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Calling application A19081, Ellen Grabowski. The property is located at 50 Staveley Crescent.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Ivers Koulides. I'm the agent for 50 Staveley Crescent. The owner would like to build a sunroom addition and hoping that you can approve the side yard setbacks.
Sure, we'll look into it. You wish us to add anything beside it already stated in your application?
No.
Okay, committee member, any question, concern at this point to the agent? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? Address 50 Staveley Crescent. Okay, staff, could you please weigh in your comments, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. It is staff's position that application A19-081 is supportable, subject to the following conditions being imposed. First, that the extent of the variance be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. Two, that the application obtain a building permit for a one-story sunroom within 60 days of the date of the decision of the committee. And three, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. These are the conditions.
Thank you. Sir, you understand and accept?
Yes.
Okay. If no further business, I would like to, looking for a motion to proceed.
Motion to approve with the conditions, staff. Excuse me.
Sure, motion to approve with the staff's recommendations by Mr. Culp, seconded by Ms. Doppler. All in favor? This is approved.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Calling application A19-082, Chieftain Investments Limited. The property is located at 7850 Heritage Road.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Good morning.
My name is Lino Melito. I'm with Orlando Corporation, Chieftain Investments, owner of the subject lands. So we're here today seeking approval from the committee to authorize a variance to permit the construction of a new industrial building to be located on a lot that does not have legal frontage onto a street, whereas the zoning bylaw does not permit a building or structure to be constructed on a lot that does not have legal frontage. This property forms part of the Churchill business community and is a block on a registered plan of subdivision and is intended for industrial development. The site is zoned industrial and is designated industrial in the official plan. Access to the site is currently provided by a private driveway extending from a signalized intersection at Edgware Road and Heritage Road. This is the extent of the private driveway here. The site is bounded by an industrial development and a stormwater management pond to the north, the future Bram West Parkway to the west, a stormwater management facility for the 407 highway lands to the south, and to the east we're actually bounded by the extension of the MTO's controlled access highway, which is shown in gray on this plan here. The application is currently we have submitted a site plan application which is currently being reviewed by the planning department, and we have engaged both MTO, Infrastructure Ontario, and the region of Peel to secure a secondary access over these MTO lands. And there's a complex procedure that's taking place for that negotiation, but in principle it's been accepted by all parties, and that will provide secondary access to the site. We believe that the proposed development is in keeping with the surrounding employment uses. It is an industrial park. It's actually the last building in our phase here in the Churchill business community. As you can see, there is no opportunity for us to provide legal frontage given where the lot is located. And given that we already have an access and we are negotiating for a second access, we feel that this maintains the intent of the official plan, the zoning bylaw, and is minor in nature. That I can answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Sure. Committee members, any question, concern at this point to the applicant? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? Seeing none. For the record, I would like to include a letter from Credit Valley Conservation stating no objections. Staff, could you please read your comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a bit of background. So the subject property forms part of the Churchill business community intended for industrial development. As mentioned, the site is bound by a stormwater management pond and an industrial development to the north, the future Bram West Parkway to the west, Highway 407 to the south, and Ministry of Transportation controlled access highway lands to the east, located between the site and Heritage Road. As such, there is no opportunity for frontage onto a municipal road. A site plan application has been submitted for the proposed development, file number SP 18-055.000, and is currently under review. I would like to mention that for a number of reasons, the city has decided not to designate this block as public highway, which would then give Orlando parcel legal frontage, but rather retain it as a buffer block. It is staff's position, based on the foretest of the minor variance, that application A19082 is supportable subject to the following conditions being imposed. First, that the applicant will make appropriate arrangements satisfactory to the city to secure access easements, pedestrian and vehicular, to Heritage Road in conjunction with site plan application under city file number SP 18-055.000. The owner finalize site plan approval under the city file site plan number, which I just mentioned, SP 18-055.000. Execute a site plan agreement and post any required financial securities and insurance to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services within 180 days of the date of the committee's decision, or for an extended date at the discretion of the Director of Development Services. And finally, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void.
Okay, sir, do you understand and accept these conditions?
Yes.
Okay, any other, please go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a question to the staff. We have a report from the Region of Peel or a suggestion that a service and easement or property conveyance be accommodated. Would that fall under just the terminology, secure access easements? Because the particulars in the staff recommendation refer to pedestrian and vehicular as opposed to servicing.
Through the chair, staff's condition is really only specific as it relates to the vehicular, and so access really means vehicular, and that wasn't meant to be servicing. If that's, we could add additional wording into that condition to cover that piece off as well, and that would expand that condition. So you could simply say make appropriate arrangements satisfactory to the city to secure servicing and access easements.
Okay, thank you. And would the applicant be?
Yes, that's understood. We're negotiating, well, it's more than a negotiation. We have an application in with the region to secure servicing through that same parcel that we're purchasing and giving to Brampton and securing easements across that. And we can't build the building without the servicing, so I don't have an issue with it.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, so any other question or concern by the committee member? Seeing none, sir, as you already said, that you are in agreement with all the recommendation put forward by the staff?
Yes.
Okay, so looking forward to a motion to proceed. Motion to approve.
With the conditions and the addition of the servicing easement.
Are you okay with the little change in servicing?
Yes.
Okay. The motion by Mr. Doffler, amended conditions, I should say, seconded by Mr. Cole. All in favor?
Thank you.
The next one.
Which one is the next?
The next one. Calling application A19083, Fana Balazingham. The property is located at 180 Davenfield Circle.
Good morning, Chairman, committee members, and staff. My name is Radhika Dutta, and I'm the authorized agent representing the owners at 180 Davenfield Circle. I'm also the prospective owner of a tutoring center, looking to be, renting from them. It's a live-work existing unit. And it's an after-school program, and we help students in the nearby residential area. And the minor variance application is submitted to request that the live-work unit be used as a commercial school, whereas the bylaw does not allow that proposed current use right now.
Okay. Committee members, any question, concern at this point? Okay, so you are the owner of the business?
Yes.
And so I believe you are the tenant of the property?
Yes.
So could you please tell how the lease is going to work? Is it a long-term lease or?
Currently, we have a 3-year lease.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? None? Staff, could you please weigh in your comments? Because then after your comments, I might ask a couple of things.
Through you, Mr. Chair, a bit of background. The subject property is zoned as a live-work unit. The applicant would like to operate a commercial school tutoring where the bylaw does not permit nor does it restrict a commercial school from operating from this location. It is staff's position that the application A19-083 is supportable based on the four tests of the minor variance, subject to the following conditions being imposed. First, that the extent of the variance be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice, and that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void.
Okay, thank you. Just a question. As it's a 3 years lease, or it could be 5 years, or it could be 2 years. But if we are allowing this, why we did not consider for the temporary use for this location? In case in the future, if the tenant moved to somewhere else and the new owner can still continue with the same use, or what was the rational staff? I'm just, not that I'm personally opposing the permanent use, but I was just wondering why we did not consider the temporary use in this application.
Just to rephrase, your question is why?
Yeah, have we, normally we allow temporary use for these kind of uses. So is that was something we did not look, or?
Just, Chair, I think it's just the nature of the use and the small scale. It's in the one unit, and they're not very large units, and just in consideration of the potential total impacts, it was seen as something that staff could forward on a permanent basis for the property. Considering some of the other uses that are actually permitted, this is probably less impactful than, say, I think a convenience store is permitted and a few other ones. And in terms of generating traffic and that sort of thing, a small-scale tutoring school is seen as something that we could support on a permanent basis here. So there's no concern. Let's monitor the situation, see if any issues arise in this situation. Hence, we felt we could just support it on a permanent basis.
The reason why I ask this, because there's some timing involved. 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., 3 students, 1 teacher per hour. So when these terms came in, so normally in those kind of situations, the staff recommend the temporary use. Not that I'm opposing the permanent use. I don't want, if not necessary for them to come back and pay another fee. But I just ask as a question, but thank you for the clarification. Any members?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a question to the staff. I note that in the staff report, there's a comment that this use will have little impact on parking. But I guess specifically the question would be in terms of dropping off and picking up students. Has there been consideration for that?
So there's lay-by parking on the street in front of the building, so there's the opportunity to drop off there, or they could also use the one parking space that's in the back of the unit and drop someone off from that point. So the intent is, all these businesses operate in some way with someone potentially dropping someone off or parking quickly to go in and buy something. So it would operate in a similar way. They just have to find an available parking space, drop the person off, and then let them go and pass on.
Thank you.
Any other question? Seeing none. Ma'am, are you understand and accept the staff's recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, if no further discussion, look forward a motion to proceed.
Sorry, motion to approve the staff's recommendation.
Motion to approve with staff's recommendation by Mr. Colt, seconded by Ms. Duffler. All in favor?
Thank you.
I'm going to step out, okay?
Calling application A19-084, Ravinder Thind and Ravjir Thind. The property is located at 40 Claridge Court.
Good morning, committee. My name is Ravinder Thind, and he's my brother, and we are the owner of 40 Claridge Court. And we are requesting the side entrance to be given for the second unit, to be allowed as a primary access for the second unit. Yes, we are currently approved for the second unit. Yes.
And the primary entrance is the current front door.
Current front door. And we want to have this a side entrance as the primary access to the unit.
And that door currently serves as a secondary exit.
Yes.
Thank you. Any comments from committee? Thank you. Any members of the public here regarding this application? None? All right, staff, if you could provide your comments, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So as mentioned, the subject property has an approved secondary unit, and the applicant would like the side yard entrance as a primary entrance to a second unit, which would require a reduction in the side yard path of travel. It is staff's position that application A19-084 is supportable in part, subject to the following conditions being imposed. First, that variance 1 be refused, as it has failed to meet the 4 tests of the minor variances. 2, that the extent of variance 2 be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. That the side yard entrance shall not be used to access a registered or unregistered secondary dwelling unit, and that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void.
Thank you. Any questions by committee members? I might have a question, if I may. So we have a situation where the unit is approved. Was it approved with the access at the side and the dimension that it currently
If I may,
exists?
just to clarify, there is no registered second unit at this property. There is an application to register a second unit that has been certified for zoning compliance based on the use of the front door as the primary entrance to the second unit. They also have a building permit in at this point in time under review with the building division for creation of that second unit, again using the front door. So this variance would then require a modification to that building permit and a review for zoning compliance should you choose to approve the variance to reduce the path of travel to the required primary entrance to the second unit, which the zoning bylaw requires 1.2 meters, whereas they're only providing the 1 meter. So I just want to put it on the record that there is no registered second unit at this location at this time. It is certainly proceeding through the registration process, and a building permit application is in and under review, dependent on the nature of the approval that they may receive today.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to note that we do have correspondence in hand for from a neighbor at 38 Claridge Court, indicating their concerns about the property in terms of maintenance and number of vehicles parking. It's noted as parking illegally. I would have a question, I guess, of staff. Have there been any formal complaints that have been received or any violations against the property?
There have been, yes, through bylaw enforcement, there has been a number of investigations over the past couple of years, primarily in 2018, for use of the property as either a lodging house or for multiple units.
Okay, thank you. And to the applicant?
Yes, we had a bad tenant and we did notify the neighbors about it, and we went through the process and they did damage our property, and we took into that. We have repaired the property and we took all the consideration, and they do not anymore, there's no tenants anymore. So we're gonna be the only sole owners, and we will be staying there after this probably.
Okay, because I guess you can't have any tenants if you don't have a legally registered.
Yes, so we, as soon as we knew, so we took up the tenants as a right away. We didn't, as we knew that the bylaw didn't permit that, so we took up the tenants right away. We didn't. We already gave the notice that the tenants are out and all that. And we did notify the neighbors about it too.
Okay, thank you. Just have a question of staff, because this has not been before us previously. Because the application specifically refers to requesting a primary access to the door that we are referring, that is an unusual situation and something that I would put to the side to those parties in the city that deal with registered units, as opposed to being in front of this committee. If we could just get some further clarification as to perhaps why this is before us.
Certainly, excuse me, through you, Madam Chair. The request is twofold, really. So it's the construction of a door in the interior side yard that doesn't meet the 1.2 meter setback from the side yard line. That would apply to any entrance in the side yard. They have also requested a reduction in the required path of travel to that door if that door is to be used as the principal entrance for a second unit, which is what they're hoping for you to approve today. Now, I know planning staff is not recommending approving the reduction in the path of travel for use of that door as a second unit, based on the official plan policy that applies specifically to the creation of 2-unit dwellings, that states that where you cannot comply with the minimum zoning requirements with the implementing zoning provisions for a second unit, then a rezoning application is required, rather than proceeding through a committee. However, they've seen that the door, placement in the side yard, having only a 3-foot setback instead of a 4-foot setback, under normal circumstances for use as a secondary entrance, is seen to be supported.
So it's, just for clarification, it's the primary entrance that creates the complication in this situation. All right, any comments from the committee? All right, so we have before us a suggestion that variance 1, or staff is recommending that variance 1 be refused. I'm just wondering if we modify the variance request, or instead of refusing in whole, simply refuse the wording for primary access. Or we could defer. Because that stands before us as not part of our...
Just to clarify, the variance is to the path of travel to the primary entrance. So the variance you're being asked to approve by the applicant through their application is a 1 meter wide path of travel to the principal entrance for a second unit. If that's not acceptable to you based on the official plan policy and failure of the test that it fails to comply with the intent of the official plan, then staff's recommendation as written is the way to go. It can still be used if you approve variance 2 to allow the door to remain in place as a secondary unit, knowing that the principal entrance, should they choose to proceed with registration, is going to go through the front door. That's a secondary consideration for you to decide whether or not to allow the door to remain as requested in variance 2.
Understood, I think. Do you have any comments? All right, to the applicant, are you aware of the technicalities of this situation, what's before us, and
Yes, ma'am, we are, but we do request that we should be given that as a primary access to the second unit. because it will help us in the long run as we have to support a mortgage on that house too. So it will be, and especially if we have to do a second unit, that's expensive as well. So if we're getting as a front as a access, so it's hard to find tenant only for the basement kind of thing. So it will be helpful if you can give us the second, the primary access from the side entrance.
Just a further clarification, I know some of these aspects fall under the jurisdiction of the council. And again, I'm grappling personally with this as being primary access that you're requesting.
Yes.
I think, again, my personal opinion is the path of travel is okay, but if it's for a primary entrance, I don't think I can comment on that because this is not our expertise at the committee here, whether it's a primary or a secondary entrance. So just a further clarification, there are some comments in the staff report. We've had these situations before us, not in terms of a primary access, but that these things fall, some of these aspects fall under council approval. Could you please clarify for us?
Further, Official Plan Policy 3.2.8.2D states, where an application for a second unit fails to conform to any of the requirements of the implementing zoning bylaw, a zoning bylaw amendment shall be required. The implementing bylaw related to second units regulates, among other things, the minimum width of path of travel to a primary entrance. The intent of Policy 3.2.8.2D is to ensure that deviation to the implementing criteria in the zoning bylaw as it pertains to second units can only be assessed by council by way of a zoning bylaw amendment. As such, Variance 1 does not conform to the intent of the official plan.
Thank you. And so just to clarify, then the recommendations made by staff would allow the path of travel to be reduced, but not for the primary entrance? No?
So, to the chair, we would allow the door to remain, but just as a door into the building, but not for the purpose of being an entrance to the a registered second unit. So it would just allow the door to be there, and they can use it for whatever purpose, like a secondary purpose to get into the dwelling. But beyond that, as some sort of official entrance into a unit in this dwelling, that's where the concern of staff is. So, and based on the policy, so we are okay with it being there as a door, but not okay with it being there as an entrance to a secondary unit.
And if we as a committee believe that the access width is adequate, it's only my personal concern that I can't make it adequate for a primary entrance, but I would consider the width adequate for an entrance. So,
And just to clarify how the bylaw applies in that regard for you, Madam Chair, there is no minimum width required to a secondary or convenience entrance into the building. So in all other respects, it's just a distance to the door. So for any other dwelling who wanted to create a side door entrance, it's simply a 1.2 meter setback from the door to the side lot line. That does not have to be an unobstructed path of travel. There may be an air conditioning unit. So that's treated separately from the path of travel that is required to be maintained as unobstructed when you're dealing with an access to the primary access to a second unit is viewed differently than a simple secondary access or convenience entrance into the building from the side yard, which has no minimum unobstructed path of travel.
okay, thank you. To the committee, just wondering if we have anybody with a motion? No motion?
As long as it meets the criteria, again, at the recommendations of the staff.
So would it be appropriate to
Well,
put a
from what
motion
I
forward?
understand, it's based on what they're saying is that, I mean, it meets a criteria based merely as a secondary entrance. It can be there in existence, but aside from that, to head it as a primary entrance, am I correct?
You're correct.
That, no, it doesn't meet that, and nor can it really be modified in any way, shape, or form, but by the sounds of this, once it's headed as a primary, it needs to meet that criteria, I get it. So, in terms of motions, I would have to go with staff's recommendations on that.
So a motion to approve the
Based
staff
on their
recommendations.
recommendations, that's correct.
Okay, seconder. All right, all in favor? So we have approved the staff recommendations. We're not able to approve the primary entrance being at the side. That's something that we have to go through the process that you're going through to register the unit. That's not something that we can approve here.
Okay, but the door remains as is, and we can use as a secondary use as of now?
The door can remain as is, but not
As a
for
primary
a
entrance.
registered or unregistered unit. It can be used for general
Secondary
use.
Okay.
So I think the correct procedure would be to continue on with the registration of the unit and the details that are required within that process.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Calling application A19-085, Brampton Bramley Christian Residence Fellowship, Inc., and the properties are addressed as 11651 and 11655 Bramley Road.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, staff, members of the public. My name is Keith McKinnon. I'm with KLM Planning Partners, Inc. Here before you this morning on behalf of Brampton Bramley Christian Fellowship Residence Limited. So just a clarification, there are some mixed up wording in both the agenda and the staff report in terms of the correct ownership name. So we are here this morning before you on two separate minor variances. We have filed a site plan application some time ago and are in process with staff. And as a result of our site plan application, it has resulted in two separate variances that have been required. So the first one that's required is in relation to an existing heritage house that's located on the site. It's having to be relocated because it currently, prior to it being moved about a week ago, was in place of where a 6-story affordable rental building is being constructed. And it's now being relocated a bit to the south. As a result of its relocation and an existing porch that's located on the heritage house, it results in a deficient front yard setback. The required setback is 10 meters. We are asking for 7 meters, which is in relation to the porch to the front yard setback. The second minor variance that we are here before you this morning is in relation to location of a hydro transformer. So through the discussions with staff and with Electra, it was determined that the most appropriate location of where this hydro transformer is results in a deficient front yard setback as well. The required setback is 6 meters, whereas we are asking for 1.5 meters for the hydro transformer. And that hydro transformer will service not only the existing or the relocated heritage house, but also for the proposed 6-story affordable rental building. So with that, Mr. Chair, we certainly believe that the proposed variances are minor in nature, conform the official plan and zoning bylaw, and represent good land use planning. So happy to answer any questions the committee or staff or the public may have.
Okay, sure, thank you. Committee members, any question to the applicant at this point? I'm seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? Seeing none. We do have a letter with the conditionally approved condition from TRCA, and I believe at this point it's not included in the staff report. Maybe we can get to hear staff's views and then we can work it out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff are in support of this minor variance application, subject to the following conditions being imposed. One, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. Two, that the owner finalize site plan approval under City File SP 18-056.000 and execute a site plan agreement within 180 days of the final date of the committee's decision, or within an extended period of time as approved by the Director of Development Services, and that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void. And just to quickly touch on the letter from the CRCA, I did have a chance to review it, but I had already submitted this report before I'd gotten a chance to review it. But in keeping that in mind, the recommendations and the discussion in that report does not change the recommendations that I have. So, yeah, happy to answer questions.
Do we need to add another condition including TRC's comments, or we can, because the letter I have, they are giving conditionally approval. That's what they're suggesting.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could raise a point for you. It appears, and I know the agent has communicated with TRCA, it appears that TRCA has applied a commercial industrial rate as opposed to a residential rate, thereby requesting a balance of the payment. So I think it's something that can be resolved between the applicant and the agent.
Okay, yeah, well, I can see $520, but just didn't want to.
And because the applicant did provide the correct fee in terms of commenting on a residential property, which is what the property is zoned as, the TRCA has interpreted it to be industrial commercial property.
Oh, okay.
Hence the higher rate.
Okay.
We're working on it.
That's good. It's a big amount, $520, so I'm sure.
Yeah, we're working on it with them.
Sure. Any further comment or concern by the committee members at this point? If not, looking forward to a motion to proceed. Sorry, before, sir, do you understand and accept all these recommendations?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so motion to proceed by Mr. Power with the staff's recommendations. Seconded by Mr. Cope. All in favor? Just carried.
Thank you.
Calling applications A19086 through to A19090 under the ownership of Chinguzi Farm Limited. The properties are located on Damaris Drive and Jenna Court. So we have a total of 5 applications.
Good morning. My name is Randy Eady. I'm here to represent Chinguzi Farm Limited for the 5 applications. The one application, A19086, is requesting a variance to the rear yard setback to reduce it to 6.45 meters from 7.25 meters. The other 4 applications are requesting setback reductions to 6 meters from the 7.25 meter regulations. If there's any questions or concerns by the committee or staff, I'm here to address them.
Sure, just a quick thing I want to check. Are we dealing one application at a time? Because it's a different measurements, I believe, in the, for example, the application A19087 at Jenna Court. I believe rest of the application has the same, except the first one on Damaris. The setback is different. So are we proceeding with all 5 applications at the same time, or?
Through the chair, I mean, if committee chooses to do them separately, I thought it would be in the best interest to consolidate them, given that they all have the same staff recommendation and there's only one that has a different setback, which is the first application.
Okay, so let's deal with the first one and then we'll deal with the rest. Okay, so committee members, we have this application in front of us, application A19086 from Damaris Drive. Any question or comment or concern at this point? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? None. Staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff are in support of application A19-086, subject to the following conditions being imposed. One, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. Two, that a clause be included within the agreement of purchase and sale for the subject lot advising of the variances affecting the property. In the event that the lot has been sold, the applicant shall provide written confirmation to the Secretary Treasurer that the purchaser or purchasers of the lot acknowledge and accept the variances, and that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void.
Okay, sir, do you understand and accept these recommendations?
I do.
Okay, committee members, if no further question, then looking forward to move.
Motion to approve for staff recommendations.
Motion to approve with staff recommendation by Ms. Doppler, seconded by Mr. Power. All in favor? This is approved. The first application. So your Damaris application is approved. So now we need to move on to Jenna Court and then Jenna Drive. So you can proceed one by one, actually. We might no need to, staff might not need to repeat the recommendation if they are the same, but at least just give their opinion, so that will help everyone to move quickly. So please go ahead, sir.
Well, I have really not much to add to the staff recommendation. We support and accept the recommendations. The 5 applications on Jenna Court are all the same, requesting variances to 6 meters from the regulated 7.24 meters to 5 meters.
Okay, so right now we have, so we are dealing with Ms. Myers' application A19087.
Through you, Mr. Chair, applications A19087 through to A19090 are identical in the request.
Okay, so we'll deal all applications in one time because it's the same variance. Committee members, any question or concerns from application, for all these applications? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience wish to speak on these applications? None. Staff, could you please bring your comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So staff are in support of all 4 of these minor variances that we're now hearing, A19087 through A19090. And we are in support of the application subject to the same conditions as application A19086. I can read them out if you like, or we can...
No, that's fine. We already have in front of us. So, sir, do you understand and accept, because I need to ask you, for application A19087, A19088, A19089, A19090, the staff's recommendation as recommended?
Yes, I do.
Okay, committee members, if no further discussion, looking forward to move for a motion for these 4 applications.
Motion to approve the staff's recommendations.
For all these 4 applications?
For all 4, yes.
Okay, motion to approve with staff recommendations for these 4 applications by Mr. Kolb. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Ms. Doppler. All in favor? It's approved, sir.
Thank you.
Calling application A19091, Polco Investments Limited. Property is located at 2300 Queen Street East.
Bit of science here we need to do, but please carry on.
Okay. So, good morning, Mr. Chairman, member of the committee, members of the committee. Jim Levac of Lenchnar Associates. I'm here on behalf of Polco Investments Limited, which is a holding company of Paula Carroll Group of companies who own and operate a number of automobile dealerships in the city of Brampton and throughout the GTA. This particular site is currently zoned Highway Commercial 1 under Section 256 of bylaw 15188, which permits motor vehicle dealerships. When the site was originally developed, and this would have been probably in excess of 25 years ago, the original zoning was tied to a schedule in the bylaw, which is called a Schedule C, Section 256, which is basically what I put up on the overhead. At that time, there were two dealerships proposed, two different building envelopes. Over the years, the site has changed, and there have been a number of additions and new dealerships that have come in. In fact, in 2000, the Acura 2000 dealership went in, sort of in the middle of those two buildings. And then there was a small expansion or a small outdoor accessory structure in one of the parking areas constructed. It was for temporary time in 2015. And in both cases, those particular either expansions or temporary buildings had to go through variances, because anytime you deviate from the original zoning schedule, you need a variance. So what's happening now is the Hyundai dealership, which is at the extreme right edge of the property, is leaving, and there's a Harley Davidson dealership going in. There's permits in for interior alterations, and we've submitted a limited site plan approval application. All we're proposing to do is a very minor addition of 30 meters squared in the area that we've shown notched out and highlighted in red on the overhead sketch. But again, like the previous two applications, this triggers a minor variance application because of the original schedule. We've had a chance to look at the planning staff comments, which are supportive of the application. Further, with respect to condition 2, a limited site plan application has already been submitted to the city and is being processed. We support the staff recommendation. We believe this is very minor and meets the 4 tests set out in the Planning Act, and would respectfully request your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any member, any question or concern at this point? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? Seeing none. Staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff are in support of this minor variance application, subject to the following conditions being imposed. 1, that the extent of the variance be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. 2, that the owner submit a limited site plan application within 90 days of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, or within an extended period of time as approved by the Director of Development Services. And 3, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void.
Okay. You understand and accept these recommendations?
Yes, I do.
Okay. If no further discussion, looking forward to forward a motion to move. Motion to approve with staff's recommendation by Ms. Doffler, seconded by Mr. Power. All in favor?
Thank you.
Calling application A19-092, Jagajit Singh Sodhi and Gurjit Kaur Sodhi for properties located at number 2 Bonavista Drive.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. I think so we are requesting, actually primarily requested one variance to permit a side entrance. It's a corner lot, and I believe, I think the total dimension, like total, I think it's 12 feet to the side, to the side fence. And what we are requesting is a below grade entrance, and it's all being covered with a fence, and there's a side entrance gate to the backyard. So what we are requesting is to permit this below grade entrance. I think we have seen the staff report, which they have accepted it, but then I think what the owner. So there's being the widening of the driveway on both sides. So we look at the, I think, diagram. So on the one side, the permitted is, I believe, 8.3 meters, 27 point, the permitted is 24 feet, but I think the build is 27.23. So I think it's all being done because of the aesthetic reasons, not for the intention of the parking. So I mean, the request to the committee is to allow this. Maybe they can probably use this for, other, like to add the planters or any bench or any lamppost instead of just tearing it out and then taking it off.
Through you, Mr. Chair, before we continue, can we have the speaker confirm his name and address for the record, please?
I believe you are the owner, as you mentioned, but can you please...
Actually, sorry, my name is Maninder Baraj. I'm representing Jagatjeet and Gurpreet Sodhi.
Okay.
Yeah, so my name is Maninder Baraj. I'm from 16 Owens Road, Brampton, Ontario.
Okay.
I'm representing Jagatjeet and Gurpreet.
Okay. So, committee member, any question or concern at this point? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? Seeing none, staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff are in support in part for this minor variance application, subject to following conditions. One, that the variance 1 to permit a below-grade entrance to be located between the main wall of the building and a flankage lot line be approved. 2, that the owner maintain the general location of the existing wood board fence to ensure that the below-grade entrance in the exterior side yard remains entirely screened from public view. 3, that the owner obtain a building permit within 60 days of the decision of approval. 4, that the below-grade entrance shall not be used for the purpose of accessing an unregistered second unit. 5, that variance 2 be refused. 6, that variance 3 be refused. And 7, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void.
Okay, thank you. As the agent had some question or he requested that in the event if they can have a permanent bench, lamppost, or some sort of landscaping changes, Ms. Corzola, if you can comment, like in the event if the committee is going as staff recommended conditions, because to me, I know there are the bylaw is not currently meeting, but I do understand the permeable landscape aspect. But on the other side, where the door is, they have done a good job with the nice aggregated concrete finish, and that matches with the porch and stuff. Given the fact it's a corner property and has quite a bit of green or the grass to the side of the street, so but still I would like to know if at the event if committee is moving ahead with as staff recommended, what are their options?
Certainly through you, Mr. Chair. They have the option on when facing the house on the right-hand side for the large walkway, if we will, to certainly add a bench or a light post or another landscape feature that would reduce the overall width of the driveway that's capable of being parked upon. And that's really the key. So any area that's capable of being parked upon, whether it's of a different material or not, is defined as your driveway in the zoning bylaw. So adding a permanent barrier in that location may be a solution in order to comply with the bylaw. They do not need approval of a variance in order to do that kind of alteration and be in compliance with the bylaw. The only issue then that would remain is the required 0.6 meters or 2 feet of permeable landscaping on the short side, so on the left-hand side of the driveway when facing the house. That is required to be maintained as a permeable surface. And right now it has been paved over and edged basically with a curbing that matches the other side and would not comply with the bylaw. That area would need to be removed and permeable landscaping reinstated. It does not have to be grass as long as it's material that is capable of supporting the growth of vegetation. That would result in compliance with the bylaw on that short side.
Okay, so in case if the committee, and I'm speaking on my behalf at this point, if the committee is accepting staff's recommendation for their permeable landscape, are they coming close to under the bylaw, or still there was some gap in order for us to move ahead?
Well, staff's recommendation is suggesting to the committee that it would be appropriate to refuse both of the variances. So both the increase in width beyond the permitted 24, so from 24 to almost 28 feet is the request, or actually just over 27 feet. So, and then they're also requesting that the committee refuse they've got 2.2 meters of permeable landscaping remaining, whereas 0.6 meters is required. So they have less than a foot, about half a foot of landscaping, whereas 2 feet of landscaping is required, permeable landscaping on that side. So if the committee were to refuse that, that would mean that the driveway, in order to comply, would have to be altered with the placement of a barrier to reduce the width to a maximum of 24 feet, and then removal of the hard surface that's within the 2 feet of the property line. I do note that, for the committee's information, there are no orders with respect to the driveway itself. So there's no requirement to comply at this point in time within any sort of time frame, because there's no enforcement activity on this, and nor has it been imposed in a condition associated with the approval of the side entrance.
Okay. As we discussed in the past, and for the new committee members, right now the council is also, I believe, put on hold for all these driveway-related issues, and I believe they are in process of changing some bylaw or making some ease. So if the committee is moving ahead, for example, with the staff's recommendation in terms of enforcement, how that is going to affect?
In fact, the council, I guess a week or more ago now, Bernie, through you, Mr. Chair, did deal with the driveway widening, and there has been no change in enforcement. Obviously, if a complaint had been received by bylaw enforcement, then an officer would go out to verify the measurements to determine whether a violation still existed at the time that the complaint was filed. So there may be future opportunity for enforcement on this property. At this point in time, as I mentioned, there is no outstanding enforcement action against the driveway on this property. So at this point in time, the owner is free to comply with the bylaw, or certainly wait to be ordered to comply, which may result then in prosecution.
And to further, is there was any enforcement complaint regards to the below-grade entrance, or they just came forward by themselves to get the approval?
No, there is enforcement activity with respect to the construction without a permit, yes.
Okay. Okay, committee member, I believe it's quite a bit of detailed discussion on this. I personally, I am okay with the driveway being as is, but again, it's all up to the committee. To me, it's the intent is not bad that someone was trying to do overly widening on the driveway. It's a corner property, and there was some, and even to the permeable landscape strip on the left to the house when we are facing, it's not that they covered entirely. There is still some space, 0.6 feet, but of course it's almost 2 feet, which is 1.97 feet, is the bylaw requires. So I'm looking for suggestions or any changes, or if we are moving ahead as is, then looking for a motion.
So any good solutions instead of just taking it off?
Sorry?
I said, I think what we are requesting for the committee is any solutions.
That's what we are discussing right now, right? So, committee members, any question, concern at this point?
So through you, Mr. Chair, variance number 2, the driveway width, if we approve the staff recommendation to refuse the driveway width, you are able to still put benches in place. So that would be separate from what we would agree to. In terms of the permeable landscaping between the driveway and the interior side lot, if we approve staff recommendations, then that would need to be altered. So if we go ahead with staff recommendations, it really means that you can put something you can secure something to the
To the park.
overage in
Extent,
terms of
yeah.
your width. So you would comply at that point, but you would have to do something in terms of reinstating the permeable.
Permeable,
landscape.
yes, yeah. That-
So that would actually be my recommendation to support the staff recommendations.
Okay, so are you putting forward a motion?
I am.
Okay. Before we move on, do you understand all these conditions and accept? Staff?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion put forward by Ms. Toffler to support staff recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Mr. Power. All in favor? So it's approved with staff's recommendations. You need to advise, I believe, your clients to, or maybe you can work with the staff, how to alter the driveway. That, as we discussed, the below-grade entrance is approved as we speak, but the other minor changes required on the driveway, and for sure they can work with some permanent barrier or the benches or some other sort of arrangements, but they need to work with the staff on that. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling application A19094, PMD Investments Limited. Property is located at 10 to 40 Rivermont Road. Oops.
Application A19094, 10 to 40 Rivermont Road, Ward 6.
Through you, Mr. Chair, my apologies. I've overlooked one application. Got a
My
little bit
apologies.
overzealous here.
I think we already dealt with, no?
I should be calling application A19093. I2 Developments, Brampton Inc., and this property is located at 225 Malta Avenue. My apologies.
That's why the agent was not look too happy. He said, come on, it's my turn.
I was worried.
No problem.
I thought maybe I was already approved.
Yes, please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of committee, staff, and public. My name is Ryan Mino. I'm a registered professional planner with KLM Planning Partners, Inc. I'm here on behalf of the applicant this morning, I2 Developments Brampton, Inc. The subject lands are located on the south side of Steeles Avenue West, west of Hurontario Street, with frontage onto Malta Avenue to the south. The lands are legally known as 225 Malta Avenue, and they represent the second of a three-phase development plan by I2 Developments Brampton, Inc. Phase 1 is located on the south side, currently under construction with townhouses, and Phase 2 is currently before you today with a subsequent phase coming to you in the future. At a high level, we're asking for 4 variances to support the development of the subject lands with a residential apartment building, 12 stories in height, with about 204 residential units. The reason for the variances before you today is there's been a restructuring of how the lands have been proposed to be redeveloped or developed as we move forward. The application for Phase 2 and 3 were approved through a site-specific official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment by the Ontario Municipal Board in 2016. And associated with that was a conceptual site plan that had stacked townhouses and a 12-story building on the Phase 2 and Phase 3 lands. Since the OMB approved the applications, the City of Brampton approved the Hurontario Corridor Main Secondary Plan, which redesignated the subject lands to Mixed Use 1. And this designation represents an area that's intended to accommodate the greatest amount of height and density in the corridor, being 4 FSI and 25 stories in height. So we got OMB approval for 12 stories, but there's an opportunity now to consider a 25-story building on the property. So related to that, the owner of the land has looked at alternative concepts. We've been working diligently with staff since approximately last summer on the various remaining phases for these lands. And that's resulted in the applications before you today. So what's happened is we've readjusted where the 12-story building is to be accommodated on the building while meeting all the urban design objectives, including the transition in height as you move from north to south. And that's to ensure that any impacts on the existing residential uses to the south both in existing developments to the west and the Phase 1 development, which is under construction. Any impacts are mitigated. A 45-degree angular plane to the proposal is realized, continues to be realized, and we comply with all the urban design objectives within the secondary plan. So the one that I think I just want to explain a little bit, the other ones are a little more straightforward, is the one with respect to the height zones. And so I had prepared what I'll call this transitional height analysis. I've got it up on the screen. It was included in your package. And what it illustrates is the zones, the height zones that we had imposed or at least approved by the OMB. The upper portion of the image illustrates the existing zoning bylaw. So we've got 3 height ranges being 12, 8, 6 stories. And so what we're asking the committee to do today is just to readjust or reallocate where the 12-story building can be with the phasing down or transitioning down in heights. And what it does is it still maintains the objectives of the official plan and the zoning bylaw with respect to an appropriate transition in height. The other 3 variances, my apologies, are to deal with a step back above the podium. So in the site-specific zoning bylaw, our conceptual plan had a 3-story podium, and then the building steps back 3 meters beyond that, and that's to ensure that there's an appropriate pedestrian scale podium in the building. What we're asking for is the committee to increase the height from 15 meters to 27 meters. So you get a larger podium, but the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw is still being maintained. The third variance is to request a 0-meter setback, and that's in this pinch point right here. And the reason for that is the owner owns all 3 properties, and that 0-meter setback is to a property line, but the intent of providing a minimum landscape strip between the building and Malta Avenue is still being maintained. And then the final variance is to accommodate an increase in FSI, and this was due to an oversight through the review of the draft zoning bylaw amendment that was approved by the Ontario Municipal Board. So with that being said, I've had an opportunity to review the staff report. I just want to commend staff on a very thorough job in the report. I agree with the recommendations and I agree with the conditions in the staff report. It's my professional planning opinion that the proposed variances meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw and the official plan, considered to be minor in nature and are appropriate for the desirable use of the subject lands, represent good land use planning. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Sure. Any members, any question, comment, concern at this point? Seeing none. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? Seeing none. Staff, could you please bring your comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the applicant has clearly explained the nature of the variances and why are they being proposed. I would just like to add that the secondary plan does allow for greater densities and heights than what the zoning bylaw allows. So it's just pretty much moving the phase 3 heights to the phase 2 stage so that the development potential can be realized in this stage, and then the phase 3 can be addressed at a later time through another application and another process. So staff are in support of this application, subject to following conditions being imposed. 1, that the extent of the variances be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice, and 2, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void.
Okay, so as you already stated, sir, you're in support and you accept these conditions?
Yes, we do.
Okay, committee member, if no further question, then.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick question. The request for the interior side yard depth of 0 meters, that triangle of land what is that to be used for? Just landscaped?
So through Mr. Chair, that triangle portion of land was purchased subsequent to the submission and consideration of the applications for phase 2. It was a remnant parcel owned by a previous developer. And so my client worked with that developer to acquire the land so that they could form part of the comprehensive development. As it relates to phase 2, it will form part of the landscape strip between Malta and the proposed building, the 12-story building. With respect to phase 3, it's likely going to incorporate some landscape element. It may include a portion of the phase 3 building, maybe a lobby entrance. That's still yet to be determined. But any of the setbacks that are applicable to Phase 3 will be dealt with, both by reviewing the existing enforced zoning bylaw and any subsequent applications through the planning department.
Thank you. So there's no anticipated road widening or easements?
Through you, Mr. Chair, all the road widenings have already been taken through the draft plan of subdivision.
That's good. So if no further question or concern or comment, looking for a motion to proceed.
Motion to approve staff conditions?
Motion to approve with staff's recommendation by Ms. Doffler, seconded by Mr. Cole. All in favor? This is approved, sir.
Thank you.
Calling application A19094, PMD Investments Limited, for the property at 1040 Rivermont Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Patrick Pearson with Glenn Schnarr and Associates. I am here on behalf of our client, who is the applicant of this minor variance application. The subject lands are located north of Steeles Avenue West, east of Light Beam Terrace, and west of Rivermont Road. Our client is proposing to establish a day nursery on the subject lands. As a result of the proposed use, our client is required to provide an associated outdoor play area. In order to accommodate this outdoor play area, our client is proposing a reconfiguration of the parking area in the originally approved site plan application. The reconfiguration will result in a minor deficiency of 4 spaces. As outlined in staff's report, this application requests permission for a reduction in the minimum parking requirements. The existing zoning bylaw requires a minimum of 230 parking spaces, whereas we are proposing a 226 parking spaces. The requested variance represents a reduction of a total of 4 spaces, which is an approximate reduction of 2% of the overall site's parking. We have reviewed the staff report and have no objections to the conditions that have been applied. It is our opinion that the application meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and we request that committee approves this application. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to present, and if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you. Committee members, any question, comment at this point? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wishes to speak on this application? Seeing none, staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff are in support of this minor variance application, subject to the following conditions being imposed. 1, that the owner amend the existing site plan agreement under City File SP 13-045.000 for the new outdoor play area associated with the day nursery to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services within 180 days of the date of the committee's decision, or as extended at the discretion of the Director of Development Services. 2, that the requirement for parking for any combination of uses permitted in the SC 2350 zone be calculated at the applicable parking rate in accordance with the zoning bylaw and shall not exceed 230 parking spaces. And 3, that failure to comply with and maintain the conditions of the committee shall render the approval null and void.
Okay, sir, do you understand and accept as you already said?
We do.
Okay, committee members, if no further question, looking for the motion to move, to proceed.
Motion to approve staff's recommendations?
Motion to approve with staff's recommendation by Ms. Doffler, seconded by Mr. Power. All in favor? Approved.
Thank you.
Calling application A19096, Nikhil and Malaika Kanjuja. The property is located at 21 Prairie Creek Crescent.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. My name is Trent Loff, representing the owners at 21 Prairie Creek Crescent. We are requesting 3 variances as outlined on the application.
Okay, please go ahead. Anything else you wishes to add beside we have all the details in front of us?
All the details are there.
Okay. Any members, any question or concern at this point to the applicant? Seeing none, I guess there's only one gentleman in the audience. Sir, do you have any question?
I'm just watching my underlying toes too.
That's good. It's better to keep an eye. So, staff, could you please weigh in your comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff are in support of this application, subject to following conditions. One, that the owner shall obtain a building permit within 60 days of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment. Two, that the extent of the variances for the rear yard setback and height of privacy screening be limited to that shown on the sketch attached to the public notice. Three, that the variance related to the height of the privacy screen proposed along the deck shall be limited to the lattice-style construction type. Four, that drainage from the proposed sunroom, roof, and decks must flow onto the applicant's property. Five, that drainage on adjacent properties is not adversely affected. And lastly, that failure to comply with and maintain any one of the conditions of the committee will render the approval null and void.
Okay, sir, do you understand and accept?
We do.
Okay, if any members, if there's any question, please put forward. If no further discussion, looking for the motion to proceed.
Motion to proceed
With staff's recommendations? Okay, motion to proceed with staff's recommendation by Mr. Power, seconded by Mr. Cole. All in favor? This is approved.
Thank you.
So, no other business. Looking forward a motion to adjourn this meeting. Motion to adjourn by Ms. Stoffler, seconded by Mr. Cole. All in favor? This meeting is adjourned.